Guys, what's going on? It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. on the East Coast, and tonight we're nationwide. My guest, JanaKing, is up in the Pacific Northwest. I got to find out exactly where. I think Seattle. That's in her logo, the needle and all that back there. But JanaKing from ASM Royal Tales and the Holdback Rack podcast. She's one half of that podcast. We're going to talk about the podcast. We're going to talk about her advocacy for biosecurity. We're going to talk about vending. And if you've seen the show before, you know we're going to talk wherever the conversation goes. And if you've seen Jana before, you're going to know that the conversation, we're going to go. We're just going to see what happens tonight. I'm really excited to have Jana on. I got to say thanks. I almost feel like I should wait for Jana to be on to say this. Maybe I'll tell her again. But behind the scenes, when I book people on the show, I feel like the show is my responsibility and they don't owe me anything. Like just them coming on the show is a value to me because at the end of the day, if you just wanted to hear me yammer on, you just watch my YouTube videos, right? So like the conversation part, the guest is just vital to the show. And I don't ever expect them to do any of the work. I write the show. I run the ideas by them if they don't want to talk about it. But Jana promoted this show like crazy. And like she knows people. Like, this is cool. I just, and a lot of I'm taken aback sometimes by people that are even aware of me or this show. And that's not the weird, like humble brag. That's just me being honest. This is who I am. You know, I kind of keep these blinders on, you know. So this week, the Reptile Report, like 151,000 followers, they shouted out the show tonight. How cool. I gotta say thanks to Shane Kelly, Small Town Exotics. I saw you in the chat over here, which I'm having trouble keeping up with already. There's 30 of you all out of the gate. 804 and there's 30 of you. Thanks. Did anybody thumbs up at him? There's a fist bump, whatever it is. Andrew at Redwood Reptiles as well. Thanks so much for shout out in the story. And I got to say thanks as well. We'll talk about them a little bit more. But I think you all know that Jana is in the 15 Minutes of Lame contest with Chris Eaton and the Snakes and the Fat Man show. What a cool thing. And really, truthfully, like brilliant. His business model is fantastic. Let's get 25 people on that are going to market like crazy for the next 6 weeks. It's brilliant. I respect him immensely for his angles and what he pulls off. And obviously he has a great show too. So, excuse me, Jana's going to talk a little bit about that. I got to say thanks to the sponsor, REDLINE Shipping. You don't see their logo yet, but you will. They're the only company I ship with. They've looked after me real well. And to be honest with you, it's not in the form of a payday or a check. They give me a great shipping rate. You buy animals from me, I can pass that shipping rate on to you. If you haven't tried REDLINE out, use the promo code PROPER5 on your next label, and you're going to get $5 off of their already really aggressive pricing. Like, their tiers of attracting customers has been really cool. This shipping war is fantastic for customers. They're coming in at a really aggressive price, which is great for the customer. Then they've got some promo codes hanging out there. When you burn those up, use the PROPER5 code to get another $5 off the next time. I like them. I like what they're doing. I was using them before they became a partner. It makes it real easy to cut promos for them. So REDLINE Shipping, check them out. I got another hurricane, man. Like, a hurricane coming this week. It's a Hurricane 1, Category 1. I don't take it too seriously, but I gotta say that Storm Ian was such a legitimate, not hyperbole, disaster for Florida and for some real dear friends. Like, really, just I had really good friends whose homes got flooded out. They fried their racks. How scary is that? It melted the tubs of the back of the tubs of their snakes because they weren't anticipating a flood. That storm shifted at the last minute. So, I mean, it wasn't even negligence on their part. So we got another storm coming this week. It's already started with the tropical storm winds outside now. Tomorrow, business picks up. Thursday is the big show as far as the storm goes, and it's supposed to be fast moving. Hopefully by Friday it's gone. It's a Cat 1, hits land, trickles off. That's the best case scenario. We'll see. I got the generator. I got gas. I don't want to make it more than it is, but it's got my attention. So we got that this week if things get weird. This weekend, Tampa Repticon. I'll be down working with Dale at Constricted Reptiles. Dale's always kind enough, not always, twice now, been kind enough to let me come work with him. I don't sell any of my own stuff. I'll be working for Dale, but it's how I'm learning the vending side of things. And I advocate that, like, do you want to learn? Go find the best person you can learn from and then go offer to work for free. If Dale, and he wouldn't, but if he told me to, sweep up, I'd go sweep, and I'd learn just from being around him sweeping. I do run the racks out to the parking lot. He doesn't have to do that when I'm there. He probably likes that. But I'll be there at Tampa Repticon. Also, look, the lineup is phenomenal at Tampa. It's not, it's not Daytona or one of the NARBC shows, but Jeremy Baud will be there. Steve Casino, Steve's Morphs. Miguel is vending perfectly engineered reptiles. He'll be there. Byron from Sweet Serpents Tampa is going to be there. Alan from Creme de la Clutch. Man, I hope, guys, I hope we have some beers after. I mean, I got to drive that night, but let's have a beer or two. And I think George MD will be there as well. He's kind of a road warrior, and he has some killer stuff, man. He's good. New video came out on Monday. Check it out. No, Sunday, Monday. Let's say Tuesday. So it was Sunday. Shout out to my good buddy Mark out at 403 Fauna. He helped me out with the research on some of that. It's about a surprise recessive gene that popped up in my collection, and he owns one of the females from that clutch that kind of tipped me off to this whole thing. You can learn all about it in that video. Check it out on the YouTube channel. I need help from the community. I need somebody that knows. If you know what this means, what I'm about to say, because I don't. I have no idea what it means, but I've been told that I need it. I got a business initiative that I'm cooking up. I've been told I need a virtual private server, a VPS, Linux-based. And if you know what that means, I need your help. I need that set up. I realize I'm going to have to rent it, and there'll be a monthly fee. That's fine. I need your help. I'm happy to pay you for your time or pay you in a snake or something. And if you have any background in streaming or Twitch or any of those things, I'm not starting a Twitch channel, but I'm working out something right now. But I need this VPS, this virtual private server. If you know anything about that, shoot me a message, Instagram, email, properroyals@gmail.com, whatever it might be. Chris at BNS Reptilia, I hope your family is well. Many blessings to you all. I don't know the news. I don't know the update because I'm not tops on your list, and that's okay because I'm just a dude on YouTube, but I really hope you and the family are well. Cheers on that. Everybody check out the Morph Market account. I'm constantly updating that, keeping that up to date, and I do have inventory that I'm adding. Also, I send out a monthly inventory list, and that has everything, whether it's on Morph Market or not. Some things don't make sense to put on there, like, hats, entry level stuff, but also the email, like the monthly list is kind of gaining some steam. People are liking it. So I'm thinking I'm going to put items. I think I'm going to put snakes on the list first before they make it to Morph Market. You get first dibs. It doesn't cost you anything. No fee, no obligation, none of that. Non-snake related. I'm feeling good tonight. First, we got JanaKing on the show from ASM and the Holdback Rack podcast, ASM Royal Tales and the Holdback Rack podcast. But also, I got a phone call today. I went on tour 4 years ago, opening for a band called the Peelers. They are the finest in Irish punk, as far as I'm concerned, out of Montreal, Canada. And they're coming back to the States in April of 2023. And I will be their opener on the southeast leg of their tour in April coming up. So I'm kind of on cloud nine tonight. I say that we get right to this show. I got people texting me about adding to the email list. Ron, I got you, man. You're on. Thanks to everybody in the audience. There's 41 of you. That's phenomenal. We're 12 minutes in. I haven't had a chance to look at the comments. I'll catch up on that. Thank you to everybody coming from Jana's post. Thanks to everybody coming from the Reptile Reports post, from Shane's post, and from Andrew at Redwood Reptiles. You guys, you're making me blush a little bit. Let's get to the content. I have to think that you all are here to see Jana. Like, there's some of y'all here for me, but let's be real about this. So do me a favor, welcome for the very, very first time to the Proper Royals stage, JanaKing. What's up, Jana?
Hi, everybody. I've been watching the comments. It is just flying.
we're moving tonight. So we're going to talk about some of the behind the scenes podcast stuff, but I'm a one-man show. I'm trying to engage with the camera here. The screen is here. The comments are here. And my eyes to you are there. But if I want to connect, I'm going to try and talk there. It's a lot going on. But hey, those people that don't know you, give us the introduction. Tell us what you got going on. And give us, I know there's a little bit of a pitch here. Give us the pitch. You know what I mean?
The pitch.
The pitch. Yeah.
I'm not used to the pitch because normally it's my podcast, so I don't have to pitch myself.
That's true.
I'm JanaKing, ASM Royal Tales. I am in the Puget Sound. We are across the water from Seattle. So the reason that Seattle skyline is in my logo is because we literally can see it from our house.
Oh, cool.
So that was actually my daughter's idea. And then, hopefully everybody knows the ASM is the first letter of each of my daughter's names. So they kind of helped.
I did not know.
Okay. So that's where that comes from. It's from my girls, because they're a big part of the business and a big part of the reason that I do what I do. Every week I am on a podcast with Jessica Hare Hollow Farms. We talk about biosecurity. We chit chat. We are not really the interview type podcast. We have a different format that we like to do. And it's more, it started out like just, when you get together with any reptile people and you just stand around and you talk and then 3 hours have gone by.
Right. Yeah.
But it's good stuff. And you're talking about the industry and you're talking about the hobby. And she was always like, the stuff we talk about, she's like, I think other people would like to listen. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, Jessica, be quiet. And so she just kept pushing it. We need to do a podcast. We need to do a podcast. And so, I reached a point in my life where I realized I needed to start saying yes to the things that I wanted to do that scare me.
Yeah.
And so I did. I was like, I'm terrified and I have no idea if I'll be good at it. Obviously, everyone who's listened to me knows that I can talk a lot. I've always been a talker. I'm the youngest of 9 children. And so, this is too much to Jessica's
9.
Yes, much to her aggravation. In my family, the format is if you don't speak when you need to say something, you're not going to be heard.
You'll never be heard. Yeah, through 9 of y'all. And then, you got the parents too. So
right.
Holy cow.
So you don't wait your there was no turn taking. There was no everybody gets to say. It was like a free-for-all, but it was a really fun, amazing free-for-all. Wow. And so it's talking is easy for me. And so once I got over the fact that people might be listening, when you first start doing it, you're like, oh, no one's actually listening. But when you start to realize, oh, there are people listening, by then you're more comfortable. And so
there was a slope for me. There was nobody's watching, who cares, to they're watching, then to now where it's wait a minute, for all the bad press that social media gets, YouTube and Instagram's job is to find your tribe, to find people that want to hear what you do or to see what you do or to interact with how you do. That's how they make their money. And they're really good at it. They make a lot of money. So once I embraced that, I was like, I don't care. Let it rip. And truly, at the end of the day, what really I screw up the live interview. I don't really think that's going to affect my snake business. Maybe it will. No. It hasn't yet. It's gone well so far.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, Jessica's at the end of the day, we're going to have this conversation, whether we record it or not. So
that's true.
Let me record it and then you can see how you feel. And honestly, this is probably I don't know, out there a little bit, but saying yes and doing something that I wanted to do was really impactful. Since I started saying yes to things that were important to me and things that I wanted, the last year of my life has changed dramatically. And I attribute some of that to starting a podcast. And my podcast, I don't feel like is like monumental or making like this deep impact, but like what I have gotten from doing it for me, like it's the thing I do for me that I don't have to explain to anybody else, and I don't have to, like, it's just something I do for me. And so that has empowered like a bunch of different choices in my life. And I mean, I honestly attribute it back to that, to me saying yes to something that I had been scared to say yes to. And so for me, it's been this like this really incredible journey. And like I said, it doesn't matter if, 10 people are listening or, 10,000 people eventually maybe, but me doing it and me showing up and doing it has been monumental for me. And it almost feels like it's its whole other animal compared to my snake business. Like they almost feel separate, even though they're together and you're talking about your snake business. But in my mind, they're almost like two different things. I have my business. I love my business. I do a lot of shows. We're going to talk about vending. I vend a lot of shows because my stuff that's growing up, that's for my higher end projects, is still growing. So as I've been waiting for time to pass, because I'm only about 2.5 years in. So the first of the good things that I bought when I first got in are just hitting that cusp of where they might go this season.
Yeah.
So, vending is the perfect avenue for those, pet quality or sub 500 animals. And so
there's a strategy to that. And I haven't vended shows before, but it's not the $1 million question. It's like the $20 question of what are you going to do with 12 of these extras that aren't eye popping, that aren't going to flip pages on Morph Market. And I don't think there's any one right answer, but however, somebody at the point that we're both at, we're at a similar place in our journey. However, somebody comes to answer that question is going to be a big part of their future, and it's got to work for them. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. Nobody's getting rich off of it, but
for sure.
But I don't know about you. When I unload some of those, it's like a breath of fresh air that I don't have to feed. I don't have to clean. I don't like even. I look back here where there's not note cards. It's empty now. And last week they were packed, and it's like, okay, now I got to figure. Now I have space if a buying opportunity comes along. I have that much less to clean and feed and overhead every day. So, and I'm not just laying there going, what am I going to do with these animals? Because they are animals. They're living animals.
Right. They're living animals. And you don't want them to sit in your rack for the lifetime, especially those pet quality animals. You want them in a home, bonding with their family, making a difference, doing what those animals are designed to do. Yeah. And so, I mean, if you have 5 normals in your rack, they're a living, breathing animal that deserves love and care, but I'm not spending my time drooling over my normals. They're not the ones that I pull out and hang out with. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so,
but
for somebody else,
they're just as valid because they're
for sure. For someone else, that's going to be the most beautiful snake that they've ever seen, and that's going to be their precious pet. For me, I'm like, you're just another normal. I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, I'm going to feed you. I'm going to take care of you, but you're not the one that I mean, unless they just have an amazing personality, which has happened to me before. I do have a pet normal, but sometimes they just have those like special personalities and they get you. But the ones that I'm pulling out are, the holdbacks and the ones that you're just like so excited you made. And so putting them into pet homes at shows, like I just love doing shows. I love the atmosphere. I love getting to connect with parents. Like the reason that I got into this is, we got a snake for my daughter who she's 10 and she has some issues, and having a snake has been huge for her. And like anxiety, it was during the COVID epidemic, and she had online school, and it was a different format than she was used to. And she was having a lot of trouble adjusting. And no matter how many tools you give them, like sometimes they're not enough. And so her snake, if she just like could not get herself together, she would go and get her snake. And her teacher was so awesome. She could bring her snake to her Zoom classes. So
cool.
There's even a picture in her yearbook of her snake hanging out on her textbook while she's doing math.
Yeah, cool.
And so like just the difference that I saw in her life is what really drew me into these animals, is I think they're amazing. And so those pet level, while they're not building my business. Like I have business plans for the higher end stuff, but the pet level ones that I'm placing in homes, like I do really enjoy talking to parents and talking about the benefits that they can have for their children and how much lower stress they are for parents as pets. And, like getting and like connecting and getting that first, like, this is our first reptile. Like I get a lot of enjoyment out of that, even though business wise, they're not, they're not paying the mortgage or anything, but for me, like it's such a rewarding experience in itself.
I think those come around. I don't know the quantifiable evidence, but I know that I bet 0 people in the audience tonight have only one ball python, is what I bet. And I bet most of them started as a pet owner.
For sure.
So I like that equation. I don't know what the finite like answer of it is, but I like the concept of that equation. Before we get too far down that path, let's go back to the actually, let's go back to the very, very beginning. I want to tell the story of you coming on the show, because when I said make your pitch, it's important to you. I know it is.
Okay.
Talk about Chris's contest, talk about what you got going on. And absolutely. I don't want to make, I even told you in the email, I don't want to make the whole show an advertisement. I want content, but sing it, go for it. What do you got?
Okay. So, I've been in the hobby about 2.5 years, and I've listened to Chris Eaton probably the last 2 years. And I was not a podcaster, especially when Jessica was like, do a podcast. I was like, I don't even listen to podcasts. He was like the only one I listened to. And, they do the contest, and it's just kind of this abstract thing that's on the fringes. I felt like in the years past, because I wasn't like in the ball python industry world, you know what I mean? Like I was on the fringes, and I feel like the contest was still more fringy. This year it's just come out big and it's everywhere. But
yeah, I don't know if it's because of how like my network has evolved in the past year. It's all I see. I'm like,
it's everywhere. No, this year has been totally different. I feel like there are so many people, so many great people that are participating that have a chance to be the winner. A lot of people are taking it seriously. A lot of people are supporting each other and sharing, and it's been just amazing to be part of it. So what happens is if you're on a 15 minutes of lame segment, you are automatically in the running for the contest. And the contest runs from November 17th to December 24th. You can vote daily on Chris Eaton's website, Snakes and the Fat Man. And it will go live on the 17th. So if you go on his website now, you won't see anything. But on the 17th, it'll be in my bio, and you'll be able to click on my Instagram, and I'll have a Linktree button that'll say the contest. And
your Linktree link is in the description for anybody that needs it.
Okay, great.
Your Linktree is fantastic. It's got the Holdback Rack podcast. It's got ASM. It's got your Instagram, and I think you just said it's going to have your link to the Snakes and the Fat Man link voting spot as well.
Yeah. So Shane Kelly, who you have up at this perfect timing on that, he listened to our podcast probably 6 or 8 months ago, and he is friends with Chris Eaton, and he called him up and he was like, have you heard this podcast? And he's like, no, I've never heard of them. And he's like, it's really good. You got to listen. So then Chris Eaton went and listened to our podcast. And apparently he just meant to listen to one episode, and he ended up listening to a whole bunch. And so he reached out to us and just sent us like a little message, like, keep doing what you're doing. I really enjoyed it. And all the accounts, Jessica basically manages all the accounts. And so she'll send me screenshots when people do that. Now people will send them to our like personal business pages. And they usually send them to both because they know, because I've said on the podcast before that if you're messaging our podcast or if she's commenting on your YouTube video or whatever, that's usually Jessica.
Yeah.
And so she sent it to me, and I was like, shut up. There's no way that Chris Eaton just messaged you, because I knew who he was, and I was a fan. And so then like he had sent it to her, we didn't have like a Holdback Rack Instagram yet or anything. So he had sent it to her business. So then he had looked me up, and then he sent me like kind of a similar thing. And I literally like, it's so stupid, like completely fangirled, and was just like, I cannot believe that this iconic like podcast, like the one that I like super look up to.
Oh, cool.
Is messaging me and saying that he listened, and so he threw us a bone and he let us do an interview, even though we're not really an interview style. Like
he's been on, he was on your show,
yeah. So like when Chris Eaton is like, yeah, sure, I'll come on your show, you say yes. You know what I mean? Even if that's not your format, even if that's not like your style or anything, like you just say yes.
Yeah,
you say thank you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so he came on our show and it was so much fun. Like we just kind of all made fun of each other the whole time, but we also like touched on some serious issues. And he made the offer then that if we wanted to, we could come on his show. And I didn't feel like I had earned it. You know what I mean? Like I said, 2.5 years, I don't feel like I've really done anything, you know.
That's why it's the 15-minute slot. Like
exactly. And so I was like, well, if you mean 15 minutes, then maybe, but it took some like, we're friends now. And so it took him like, it's okay if you're on 15 minutes with lame, like it's not a big deal. And so because I'm a podcaster and because I know like the behind the scenes and that kind of stuff, I kind of had some creative ideas about what I wanted to do with my 15 minutes, even though it was 15 minutes.
Okay.
So he has a very like stringent format that he does. And it's just like a real quick, and he asks all the same questions.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I want to kind of do it a little differently. And he just totally went with it. He loved it. And I gave him my ideas and then he kind of just ran it. And it like what came out is what the interview.
How long ago did you film that?
I want to say it was like September-ish.
Okay, so fairly recently,
fairly recently. And it was so much fun. So like he does this, like he likes to support women in the industry. Yeah. And our podcast is two women talking in the industry. And so when he had done his, like, he does this like hot girls episode, and there was a lot of controversy around his episode, and it was like a cancer culture type thing. And everybody's like, oh, he's a womanizing dog, blah, blah, blah. That's not how I see it. I think it's funny. Yeah. And I think he really is leaving room for women in the industry to have a space too. And yeah, he's being funny about it. Yeah, he's, talking about looks and other things. And that's offensive to some people. If it's not your cup of tea, that's great. But I think it's great. And so we kind of made fun of that a little bit in the interview. And
oh, cool.
And so I showed up to my interview and I'd been literally cleaning racks all day, like rats, snakes, the whole 9 yards, just nasty. And so we were kind of playing on that, that culture of that, how people were like, oh, he's such a womanizer. And he was like, girl, you need to take a shower and slap on some makeup. And then he hung up on me in the interview. And so then I come back and of course I'm all dolled up and,
right.
And it was just really fun. And then he has this series of questions that he asks about his sponsors. Like, do you support his sponsors?
Yeah. Are you in or you out? You get graded on it. Yeah.
And at the end of every time he's asked those questions in the 15 minutes, he always says, why didn't you lie? And so every time he said that in my brain, I'm like, I'm going to go, if I'm ever on a show, I'm going to lie. And I'm going to say yes to everything. Yeah. And so I totally did. And he completely called it on. That wasn't scripted. He just knew that I was lying and completely called me on it. But it was so fun and so funny that it was literally everything that I wanted from it. Was just 15 minutes and it was so dumb. But like I said, he's iconic to me. And, he's one of my podcasting heroes. And so to be on his show and to be able to input creatively, it was a lot of fun. And now to be able to have the opportunity to, if you win the contest, you get a 2-hour show.
Yeah.
Cool. Whether you've earned it via, business acumen or anything.
There's no that's I'm guilty of it too. That's the imposter syndrome stuff. Why should there's 55 people in here right now, by the way. I get that feeling where I'm like, what are they doing here? On the other hand, good and well, it's a hell of a lot of work behind the scenes. We put in, we don't just flick on a switch and all of a sudden, poof, we're cranking out podcasts for over a year. It's a lot of work. So I got to pause for 1 second. Andrew at Redwood Reptiles, thank you very, very much for the kind, what is that, super chat or sticker?
Super
I
chat.
should know because I'm super appreciative of it. Those of y'all that haven't seen the show before, all of those go to feeding ball pythons so that I don't have to spend time breeding rats or making that $20, digging ditches or whatever else I may do in my spare time. So Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I got to go to bat a little bit for Jana. I think she called the 15 minutes of lame part fringy, not Chris.
Oh, I mean, like the people who were in the contest, the advertising of it was fringy.
The people were fringy, not Chris. I don't
the contest was fringy and not like main stage industry chatter. And this year it feels very like everyone's chatting about it rather than just seeing it around the edges, like the trickling around the edges. Chris Eaton is not fringy. He's the real deal. Like,
I'll tell you, you got to me first, but like, it's another kind of a weird thing. I'm like, maybe I got a little more pull than I did. Like, y'all are coming out of the woodwork. I'm like, oh, you want, all right, let's see what's going on. So there are more of you. I had to tell everybody, like, I'll be Switzerland. I'll give you a platform. You better bring content though, because I'm not here. Like, somebody wants me to advertise for them. I got a price,
right?
But I'm not charging anybody tonight. So anyway. Dude, Andrew, there's another 10. All right. Thank you, man. You can be a first-time guest anytime you want if you're bringing things like this. Andrew, thanks very much. Everybody, check out Redwood Reptiles on Instagram for sure. And I'm pretty sure a pretty big YouTube page as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He is also, I believe, isn't he in the contest? Hang on. Let me double check that.
No, he's a previous guy in the contest.
Oh, previous guy. Okay.
I think maybe Andrew needs it. That's how he butters me up. He's like, so Adam, I'm going to be on in December, and
maybe he's just been sharing everybody's content because he's awesome.
I think it's I think it was a previous year one. So all right. So look, everybody, two thoughts. One, if you want to vote for Jana, vote for Jana. She's going to have her list on her Linktree. Second, I got to vouch for Chris. Chris has always been very gracious to me. We've interacted a couple times, not overboard. He was kind enough to invite me on the 15 minutes slot, and I couldn't make the schedule work in the first place. And then I'll be the first to admit I went on one of the breeder open call live call.
No. They're not family friendly.
No, well, and look, I spent the past 26 years of my life in kitchens and rock and roll green rooms. Like, I'm fine. I'm good. Like, I can live with it. It was a little bit of a square peg round hole, though. I will say that. I was like, I don't know if this is it wasn't bad for the brand, but I was like, I don't know if it's necessary for the brand. And we were wrestling on when we were going to film and how to make it work. And I was like, I don't know, this feels a little bit forced. But I will say, I watched several of his 15-minute segments and show prep, and I was like, those are different than what I saw on the breeder call in. I was like, all right, maybe I'm warming up. So we'll see what the future brings. But
the Zoom calls, the open Zoom calls are very inappropriate. Like, everybody is unfiltered. They're not recorded. It is meant to be like the smutty corner of the industry.
Yeah, it's wide
all
open,
in good fun.
Yeah, and it is fun. And like I say, it wasn't that it was offensive to me. It was just like, this isn't really my scene. It wasn't a judgmental thing.
It didn't sound like it was judgmental. I was just letting the other people know that haven't ever been.
Yeah, check it out. If you haven't been and that sounds fun, like, go, because you're going to get your full dose. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, like, coming out of a 15-year marriage, that is my scene. So
I got to visit that in a minute. Not your marriage part, but hang on, I got a thought on that too. But the other thing with Chris, Jeremy Baud, he and I made a deal for him to acquire one of a guitar that I built, and Jeremy donated that to the US Arc auction at this past Daytona. And Chris filmed a killer promo video to promote that guitar, to promote that being auctioned for US Arc. So he's been, like I say, Chris has been good to me. I got nothing but kindness and respect for Chris. So and as I said in the intro, what a brilliant idea. Let's get 25 people.
Yeah, excellent marketing strategy.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes.
I can acknowledge it. I got no problem with that.
And I looked it up. Redwood Andrew is in the contest. That's what I thought. I just didn't want to speak out of turn. But he is in the running, and that's why he's been campaigning so hard for it. And
you know what? $40 of campaign contributions go a long way. I ain't afraid.
And you heard him say that there was room for you if you wanted, and he's getting a lot of people asking. So you better slip that message into the DMs.
There's slip the message. This ain't a pay for play. I'll tell you the truth. I gotta ask you about this. I have had people that are like, I'll just like sponsor an episode and then you can put me on. And I'm like, those are different things. I'll run a promo for your brand. I want to show content because we're not like, and another thing behind the scenes we were talking about earlier, like I don't do like hey, here's the 20 questions I'm going to ask you. It's like, here's the topic. So let's see where it goes.
Yes. Because
the genuine, like, aha, fun. Who knows if we get to everything tonight? We'll figure it out.
Right. But no, we won't. But the good stuff comes.
That's right. It's going to be entertaining. Yeah, I might have to go redo the search engine optimization later to make it match, but that's fine. I don't care.
Right.
But what I don't want us to be is like pro wrestlers that are paid off to be like, all right, here's what I'm going to bring tonight. Like, no, like just to be you kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that format.
No, it's sort of without a net, and there's times where it's hit me in the head, and I'm like,
there's times where you just drop the ball and it just keeps rolling, and you're like, what was that? Okay. And then there's other times where magic happens.
It is, and when it happens, it's super magical. It's fantastic. One other, like, pulling the curtain back, when Jana approached me about coming on, so I always want to make sure I have like some connection with somebody. So I checked out her channel. I hope my reply wasn't that cold to begin with, but my first reply was like, I don't want to advertise for somebody else's product. And by the way, we got to keep this PG. Like, I've seen your stuff. And you were so good. You're like, I get it. That's your brand. I'm down with it. It's no problem. And so, guys, what I'm saying is you got to check out Jana and Jessica's podcast. I think
not safe for work, guys.
No, not safe for work unless you work remotely at home like I do. And I can scrub dishes while I'm watching Jana's show. I love the interaction because you and Jessica, and I mean this in a hugely genuine, complimentary way, I think you have balanced entertainment with insight at the highest levels. Like, I think I'm pretty good on insight, and I'm okay on entertainment, but like, I don't screw around that much. I just get right to it. And then when I'm done, poof, I'm gone kind of thing. You two balance it fantastic. And just on the surface, I have no idea personally. On the surface, the personalities are so different. Like,
we are almost nothing alike. Yes.
It's so good. I almost want it. Like, I wish my calendar's over here is why I keep looking at it. I wish I had like an open week next week to bring Jessica on and be like, guys, remember last week?
Yes.
This is going to screw with your mind now, because watch this.
It will be like night and day in the best way, because, what she brings to the table, I bring my own things to the table, and so when we first began, it was more like mentor student, because she has so much knowledge and so much history. She's been breeding snakes since she was in high school, like in her parents' bathroom. Literally, like, she had boas that like lived in her parents' bathroom, and she was breeding them at 15, 16 years old. And I'm a Chris Hardwick recruit from the COVID baby boom,
pandemic.
And so it's like, I don't have that foundation. And then she also has a degree. What?
How did you two get connected?
So we were locally, like regionally involved in the same like groups. So we saw each other, we knew of each other. And then I breed ASFs. Yeah. And they go for a lot of money locally because not a lot of people breed them. And so I had a show coming up. And so rather than feed, because they go for like $10 a pop. And at the time,
my ASF guy is watching. To take that back. That's a lie. Don't tell him that. No, that's not going to happen.
So they go for like $10 a pop, which is ridiculous. I'd never pay that. Yeah. And so you sell a colony, like a 1-3 colony, and you can sell them for like $45. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And so I had a show coming up, and rather than feed, because I keep them around and I because they're a lot cleaner. I really enjoy the way that they interact with each other, their colony structure. We could go on about it. We could do a whole another episode about ASMs, but I just personally like them better than rats and mice. And so I have them, and I have them around for the ones that won't eat frozen thawed, but most of my stuff is frozen thawed and I buy it out. But I was like, I shouldn't be feeding this to my snakes when I could make $10 a pop. And locally, the price
Tito just saw it. That's my ASF guy. He's like,
prices are going up. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's the Pacific Northwest. We're on the other end of the country, like literally opposite poles. So you can't take that to heart. Anyway, so I wanted to bring them to
awesome. I would pay more just to know that Tito was the guy breeding. This is true. Absolutely true. I would pay more just to know that Tito's the guy I'm getting the ASFs from. I know his facility. I've seen his animals. I see how he cares for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, a good rat person is priceless.
Exactly.
And so I had decided I was going to save mine and take it to the show, because I get requests for colonies more than I can ever accommodate. And like, I'm not breeding them to sell. Like, I'm breeding them for me. And right now I am short on time. Time is my most expensive commodity. And so I was like, I'll buy rats, because rats at the time were like $250 for a small medium, which is what the adults are eating, and $10 a pop. So it makes sense for me to just keep raising what I had and keep them back for the show and to go and buy locally. And so Jessica, she sells rats when she lived here to pay for her rats. So her snakes were eating for free, basically.
Right.
And so I had always heard of her. I knew of her. I didn't really have anybody local that was a female breeder. And so we had connected a few times in groups, but then I was like, I know you sell rats, whatever you have extra, I'll buy. Like, I'm not a picky customer. Like I said, most of my stuff's on frozen thaw, but if you have extra, I'll find something to eat it. At the time I had a lot of snakes. I have reduced quite a bit, but anyway, so I started buying rats from her in the like 6 to 8 weeks around that show, for like a couple weeks following and a couple weeks before. And we would just stand in her driveway and talk for hours.
Yeah.
And just immediately from the first time normally I don't even think she lets people onto her property. She would she had like a gated farm. Right. And so she would just like bring you your rat order to the gate or whatever.
Her radio voice, and I mean this in the most endearing way, her podcast radio voice sounds like she lives on a gated farm in Washington on the Puget Sound.
And if you cross the gate, she's going to shoot you.
Right. She's
I didn't even know.
Right up into the gate, right?
Right. I'm this like bubbly, friendly, outgoing person, and she's like don't talk to me, don't look at me. And I just drive right through her gate and hop out, and I'm making conversation. That's how I am with everybody. And so, especially somebody that knows how to talk snakes. Like, I never get to talk snakes. I was married at the time, not into snakes, not into the industry, very intelligent person, but doesn't want to sit and talk with his wife about snakes in the industry and anything like that. Like, literally 0%. He's a nuclear engineer. So did not interest him one iota. And so literally it was like manna from heaven. And so like, we just stood there and talked forever. And I didn't even know that she was this super shy person or this super introvert, because literally I just showed up and elbowed my way in and was like, hey, and then we just hung out for hours. And like, now thinking back about, maybe I'd overstayed my welcome. And she was like, this lady will not leave. But like I said, every time I came, it was that way. And that's when she started saying, like, these are intelligent conversations. She was like, other people are going to want to hear what we're saying. And I was like, what? I was having like a little bit of an imposter syndrome with my whole self at the time. And so, like that moment was like, well, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, but that's not true. Maybe people do. And now they have the opportunity, if they'd like to tune in, to hear what I have to say. So that's how we met.
They should tune in. And like I say, to me, I think it's a very high level of entertainment and insight. Usually it's one or the other, and it's kind of a sliding scale, Sure. I think it's very good. And the other thing I love about your show is that you all stay on the topic of generally whatever you're talking about, but certainly within the realm of reptiles. And I think generally there's a ball python component running through it usually.
Sometimes we branch out. She does boas and colubrids and rat snakes. And so we do other episodes that have to do with that. But I'm mainly a ball python person. And that's like where the majority of the industry is. And so we tend to gear it more like that. But who knows? I mean, in the future, we may do all of them as I learn more and I can contribute more. Then
that's the other part. Yeah. Where's the balance of like, I'll just sit over here in the corner and be quiet.
Yeah, just sit over here, and eat my popcorn. So, I mean, you talk about a lot of the work that goes into podcasting, and I like to joke all the time on our podcast that I'm like the pillow princess. Because the pillow princess, that's an inappropriate reference, so I won't explain it to you. Okay, maybe after the show.
I'll Google it. Or
don't Google it. I'll just explain it in the after show.
Turn on the VPN before I Google that.
Yeah, do not. And so she, like, the way that she roped me in, because I'm not a techie person. Right. I didn't know anything about podcasting. The only one that I listened to was Chris Eaton's. So I had no idea, no idea how to enter the realm of podcasting at all. And she was like, I will do everything. Just show up and talk.
Show up, yeah.
And so she does probably 90% of the work. And we're trying to work it out so it's more balanced. So I do write some of the shows because we do have bullet points that we follow. Because we are
I think it was the Halloween. You were dressed like a unicorn in like pajama thing. And it was great. It was good. It was like, what's going on here?
That was our anniversary Halloween episode. Yes.
Well, it was great. But you, again, like high entertainment, high intrigue, and then PowerPoint presents like college level, here's what's going to happen with the economics. Here's what's going to happen here. And it totally worth seeing. And I even brought it up in my video that I filmed today. And I did shout you guys out in the video and said, go check out this episode. But it was like my show prep for today. I was like, okay, I'm going to pick this up here. That's going to save me 20 minutes because I'm just going to be like, here's the conclusion. Go understand it there. And now I'll get to my point.
Here's my response to that. See, that's all Jessica. And she has a master's degree. And she, like I said, she has this level that's up here, and I have no problem admitting that, I'm here to learn too. So if I don't understand something, I'm like, hey, can you explain it for the people in the back that have no idea what you just said? Right. And I think that's why we work so well, is because her intelligence isn't off-putting to me, and it also doesn't make me feel less. I just am like, oh, please teach me, and so the fact that she's willing to teach and to offer all this abundance of knowledge and history that she has, it's wonderful. And I try to keep it entertaining for the rest of us because, sometimes she puts me to sleep and then we joke about how I'm asleep. But, I have written some shows, like when I do have something to share that I feel like I have a lot of experience in, like we did a vendor episode. I wrote most of the vendor episode. And so I'm trying to contribute more as we, it's becoming its own thing and it's becoming like a real thing, I feel like. And so I want to help take ownership of that and take some of the burden off of her so that it is co-creators,
How do y'all work up show ideas? Does it just come organically? Is it a struggle? Is it 1 week could be a struggle, 1 week could be organic? What's the grind there? Because I feel that.
So Jessica probably can answer that better because she writes the majority of our shows. We have a Facebook group for fans. And they're like the diehard, 50 fans, you know what I mean? Okay. It's not a huge group. So we'll ask in there, is there something you'd like to see on the show? Or is there something that we've covered on the show that you'd like us to talk about more? So revisit. Yeah. And we're in a different format now. We're in a live format. And so it's organically changed how we present. And so there was no video before, and now there's video, which, when you're trying to share information and you're trying to give a PowerPoint and you can't use your PowerPoint, so there are some things we're going to bring back and revisit, but sometimes it's hard, but we have a one file that we both have access to. And so if one of us feels inspired to write something like the vendor episode, I'll just go through and write it, and then I'll cut and paste it into our shared file. And we also have a running list, like who we would like to see interviews from. And our interviews are very odd. They're not like, we're not going out and hitting, you know, the top 10 in the industry of ball python breeders and doing the interview that everybody else has done. Like, not to hate on that or anything. Like, everybody needs to do their own thing, and what structure works for them is great. But that's not what we're doing. So we have just like really unique people we'd like to bring on to the show. So we'll have a list of that, and then we'll have, you know, like whenever an idea comes up, we'll put it on. For Jessica, she likes things to happen more organically. So if she sees something in the news, or she sees something that, you know, we chat a couple times a week. And you know, like we've had some unique challenges. Like halfway through our first year, I was like, oh, hey, I'm getting divorced. And so I went from being a stay-at-home mom who, you know, had a lot of time and energy to put into my ball python business and my podcast, to all of a sudden being a single mom of 3 and going back to school full time to get my nursing degree. And so I'm wanting to contribute more, and she's telling me to contribute less because I'm doing so much already. And so we're trying to still find that balance, but the live has really helped take a lot of work, like back end work from her plate. So like I said, it's pretty organic, and we'll just throw in what we need to, and we can always look at it. So if she sees things that are news, you know, she'll put it on there. So when I haven't had a chance to even look at Instagram all week because I have midterms or something, I can go and grab our show notes, is what the file is called. And she'll have like links to all the YouTube videos that were pertinent in news, or she'll have, you know, like screenshots of Instagram posts that she thinks are interesting. And she has her fingers in every pie. And so like, she'll bring things to the list that I've never even heard of them, or heard of that podcast, or heard of that YouTube channel. And so she just brings like so much together that like people love our news because it's so broad. And that's Jessica. That's totally Jessica. And it's mostly organic, but sometimes we'll get down to crunch time and we'll just have to pound something out. And she likes it to be very formatted. I sometimes when we have like more free episodes, that's also my doing, because I like to have those every once in a while, because that's more my style. This
sounds like a I get
creative difference.
What?
Is that like a creative difference?
No. I was going to say, it sounds like how I interact with musicians. So like I do solo shows, which are great for the money because I don't have to split the money with anybody, but they're grueling. Like I can't just take a solo and play a melody if nobody else is playing the background, you know, like you can't just do that by yourself. So if I have somebody else, and what's really crazy now, this only works up to a duo. A trio it doesn't work for, but a duo, we end up putting on a better show than I can put on solo. So we end up making more money in tips, to where then the money fall apart doesn't hurt us. I'm getting an echo. Maybe I need headphones. Is it me or on you think? I don't know.
I'm not hearing an echo at all.
All right. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go grab my headphones real quick and test out if it's headphones or not. Okay.
I have mine too if you need me to do that.
Well, we'll take it one step at a time.
Okay.
Let people know about your guests coming on next week on Friday's episode. I think they're in the audience.
Okay, they were in the audience. I did see that. So we are going to have a guest, and we are going to be talking about biosecurity and geckos, right? I'm just like second guessing myself. Oh, hang on, let me pull it up. So we are live on Fridays. It's 1 p.m. Eastern time, but 10 a.m. Pacific time, because I'm Pacific time. So we're going to be talking about crypto and crested geckos, and it's going to be Richard Nicholos. Is that how you say that? It's Richard, and he's going to be coming on. He's creative. I can never say his name, so he's going to be messaging me later because I butchered that too. But it's on our Instagram page if you guys want to check it out. But he'll be live. He comes to our shows, our live shows, and he is active in the comments. And we're always looking for outside species of people who are talking about any kind of biosecurity, especially if they're also testing, because that you can be very active in biosecurity and not test. But specifically, we're looking for examples of testing so that we can share that journey with other people. So if they have questions, they can ask. And if you've only done part of it, then we can't tell the whole story. And so when we bring somebody on, we want somebody that's done some testing. So if people have questions, then we can answer those questions. But, the whole foundation of our show is around biosecurity. And so it is very informative. It is about ball pythons. It is about the industry and the news and all those things. But the foundation element to our show is actually biosecurity, and our want to normalize it in everyday conversation. And so we're having all these other discussions and all these other conversations because we want to interweave the discussion of biosecurity in the reptile industry. And so, that can be a very Karen subject. It can be a very off-putting subject, but if we can make it non-threatening and make it fun and we can make it everyday conversation, then, that's really what we're doing with our podcast.
So let's talk. How about now? Can you hear me all right still?
Yep.
I hear no echo anymore.
Okay. I didn't hear one to begin with. So if you're happy, I'm happy.
I didn't drink any before the show, so I feel like it was really there.
No, I believe you.
No, I know. I'm giving you a hard time. So, okay, cool. Audience, sorry for that.
I'm also sober. This is tea in my cup. Family friendly. Okay, I can hack it, guys.
I love it. I appreciate it. I am humbled by it. Thank you. So let's talk about this topic of biosecurity. We got, DNA Reptilia says that it was there. Yeah, I don't know what that was from then. Okay, well, anyhow, that's a new thing for me to figure out, and I'll just wear headphones for now. Talk to me about your stance on biosecurity. I realize that can be a 2-week conversation, but
sure.
give me the minute or two. Yeah, and then let's talk about that a little bit. Let's yeah.
Okay, so before I met Jessica, biosecurity was not something I thought about. I am a certified medical assistant. I was that before I became a stay-at-home mom. So I do have a general understanding of cleanliness and washing your hands and, basic stuff that everybody needs to do. But biosecurity for reptiles was not on my radar. I had heard, because when you first get into the hobby, you get so excited and you're trying to absorb all this information from all the different channels and avenues, and there was so much of it because it was COVID. So
right,
I had seen now my brain's gonna go blank. He's in California. He just started his own rack company. Help me out. He had a Nido journey that he recorded.
Oh, I gotcha.
Pack racks.
Oh, pack racks. Yeah. Gotcha.
So I had seen his he had vlogged his journey with Nido, but it was so taboo and it was so everybody was oh, now you can't buy from him. And so it was just the scary monster that you talk about around campfires, the ghost story. And it didn't seem real. It seemed more like a fairy tale. And so that's kind of that was the amount of information I had when I started hanging out with Jessica more. And she is very passionate about biosecurity. She's very passionate about disease testing. It is her heart and soul. And there is no middle ground. There's no, she's just very, isn't he in Georgia? Is he in Georgia? I thought he was in California.
I met him in Daytona, but maybe he came all the way from California. I'm not sure.
Jessica's always right. This I have learned. So we'll just let her be right because she usually is. So
okay, we'll go on the safe bet then.
For sure. So she's very, like I said, she's very black and white about it. And I have never been a very black and white person. And so, but when you've come out of the gate, she was trying to talk me into testing my collection before it got too big. And I think at the time I had 40 adults and a lot of grow-ups and babies and stuff. And so she was trying to do it now before it's too late or before you get too big, or, she's very passionate about it because she has lost her collection twice.
I was going to say, what was at the root? So this is experience with infections with fatal infections.
Right. And so if you go back and you watch our very first introduction episode, we tell our stories, and she talks about her story. So when she was young, she was breeding boas in her bathroom as a teenager, like just how freaking amazing is that? And so she had boas in, 2000, so 20 years ago. And they didn't know about diseases. They didn't have disease testing. They were just starting to talk about it, but there were no options. There was no swab. There was nothing to be done at the time. And so by the time she started losing animals, they had started talking about the diseases, and she does her story much more justice. So please go and listen to our first episode if you want to hear Jessica's story. But because of that, she ended up losing her whole collection of boas, and these, basically had like grown up through high school with her. So they were like her best friends. And I mean, all of us reptile nerds know, like, these are our buddies too, and so it was a very traumatic.
Was she able to pinpoint what that first infection was?
According to my remembrance, I don't think they had the technology to
do that.
So it wasn't like a typhoid Mary. It was just like all of a sudden snakes started rolling and there was no way to test the rest. And so she didn't want to pass that plague on to other people, and they have live births. So it is completely transmitted to their babies. So then she couldn't breed anymore. And so it was just like there was really nowhere to go from there because we didn't have disease testing like we do now. And so then she didn't come back for a long time. And then she re-entered the hobby, and she was doing, like, there was testing, and she was like, okay, I think I can do it, because that was very traumatic. Like when you lose your whole collection that you've had since you were, a very young age. And so she decided she was going to come back, and she wasn't hardcore about it. And so there was like, she had gotten them from somebody before and they had tested negative, I think is what happened. And then, like I said, she tells her own story. I'm not doing it justice, but she had another incident where she had to euthanize a bunch of her collection again. And so now there's no room for her to be any different. And that's not my personality. But when I had a snake die right after it had laid eggs, and the snake just happened to be named after my daughter's best friend. So she was a really important snake. And at this time, it's COVID. We're all at home. We're all very involved in the business. My girls have named every single snake. We're holding all the snakes all the time. Like, I mean, this is a very hands-on point in our business. It's life has slowly trickled back into normalcy. Like, I'm doing a lot more than I was at that point. They were all helping. And so it was a very traumatic thing for my kids to lose one of the snakes that they really loved. And, you tell people, oh, my snake laid and a week later was dead. And she's like, Jana, that's Nido. Like, please send that off for necropsy and start testing your stuff. And, like I said, it was my kid's best friend she named her snake after her best friend. So of course there was like the whole funeral service and, like the crying, and I'm like, that snake's already buried in my backyard, I mean, there was nothing I could do about it, but I had swabbed the snake before we buried it. And so I had sent it off, and of course it was positive for Nido.
Wow.
And so at that point, it's like, you're already in it. Like, I had been in it a year. And I had invested, I think at that point, probably like 8,000 to 10,000.
Yeah. Big money.
Was big money to me. I mean, I've since invested way more than that,
sure.
but at the time, like, I had robbed Peter to pay Paul because my ex was not behind me at that point. Like, I hadn't proved that it was a viable thing. And he was like, you can do it, but you got to do it with this and make it whatever you can with this, like, And so, because I was a stay-at-home mom, so he's bringing in the money, and
I got
so like, I'm not gonna hand you 20K to go have fun with when I have no idea what you're doing. Like, you want to have a snake business, really? Like, it sounds insane,
right?
Which we all know that it is insane because we're all doing it. But
we're doing it, but it's
It also there's validity in that, but I hadn't shown him that, and he wasn't digesting the information at a rate that I was. And so I knew that I was fine, but then I had a snake positive for Nido. And at that point he was like, you've spent this much money and you have this many animals and you weren't disease testing. And so, I mean, at that point, I'm like, you're right. You know, like, what the heck am I doing? I wasn't protecting our investment. I wasn't protecting our business. And so I just kind of had like this meltdown moment. And I was like, yeah, I need to just stop and start testing, because I was just like willy-nilly just out there like everybody else is, bringing snakes in, you know, like, you do the 3-month quarantine, there's no respiratory infection, you're good to go, you know, like just standard stuff. That is how I had learned online. And so, I mean, that was a really awful, gross month of my life, trying to test everybody. And luckily my husband was like, yeah, we got to protect our investment. It was like $1,000+ to test everything. Right? Yeah. But he was like, we need to just know where we're at. Like, are we going to burn to the ground, you know, $10,000, or are we okay?
Right. What did you find? Had it spread to other animals or so?
Well,
and sorry, let me back up too, just to play devil's advocate. And I agree with your premise. Let me make that very clear. I agree with the premise. But to play devil's advocate, I hear of Nido, I hear of more companies making testing available, and I get skeptical when I hear of suddenly there's new products that cost money, and now there's this problem over here that wasn't talked about before. So there's this like skeptical, like, wait a minute, are the people that are invested in this project the same people creating the problem? And to hear you say that you actually had Nido arrive, that's a different level of validity than I've come across. And listen, I completely, I think the Gobbles did a fantastic video on Nido. They did a great video. And him being a doctor, a veterinary doctor, brought a lot to the table and really got my attention on it, versus every person out there on the internet suddenly being an expert on Nido. Like, oh, there was like a 2-week period that like the world was ending. We were done. It was over. Like,
I feel like we contributed to that a little, and it was not intentional. But yes, I remember the world ending. It was a very stressful time.
It was like you couldn't, you weren't allowed to ask a question like, well, how does it work? And I'm like, well, you're one of them. It was like the communist scare, like he's Nido. That's it. But no, I thought that the Gobbles did a very good job on that. And so now back to, what did you find? Had it spread? Was it mostly contained? What was the ramifications of that?
So the very first phase of testing, as I tested everybody in that female's breed group.
Okay.
And then I tested all of my males, my breeder males.
And now we're just talking Nido here, and there's many other viruses.
Yeah, just talking Nido.
Issues. Yeah, you're just talking Nido. That's spread by, am I right, salivary contact. So it's not, right. It's not flying around the room. It's not
flying around the room.
It's Nido here right now kind of thing. It's not that.
No, it's not flying around the room. It is actually like the least scary of the diseases.
But if
there's
for feeding tones, if you fed one snake that struck this, that had Nido, now you've got that salivary.
And you can pass it. If you pick up a rodent, now you're putting it on that rodent, and then they eat that rodent, even if it's frozen thawed. If they're eating that rodent, then they're taking that into their body, and whether or not they get it or not, it's like we don't have hard science on how contagious it is, but that is how it is spread. And so, just to like really quickly, because you said the Reader's Digest, and I'm giving you the like lifelong 3 hour.
No, that's why I'm interrupting you. It's okay. I'm envisioning that I'm the 8th child to the 9th, and we're just gonna jump in. And I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off. What the hell happened with the test? Did you?
Okay.
So did they get more or not? Where did it go from there?
So I ended up, I believe, having 6 positive at that time.
Wow. Okay.
And they were the other members of that breed group. And so the other breed groups, the males all tested negative. And so because when you don't have those results and you're waiting for those results, you imagine the worst. So I've had a positive at this point, and now I'm doing the next round, and I'm like, it's all going to come tumbling down, and I've got my angry husband, and like, which, I mean, very valid on his point. He's like, why didn't you know about this?
Like it was 10 grand and poof,
exactly.
Like a
And
wind.
so, so it was very like, I couldn't even open it. I had to send it to Jessica, and I was like, please open it and just let me know if it's, because we knew there was going to be a positive because I'd already had a positive. And so I was just like, just tell me if it's real bad or if it's going to be okay, and so like, sometimes she's my like test buddy opener because sometimes I can't do it, but it was really, I expected it to be really, really bad, and it wasn't. I was really grateful. I was really lucky. 6 sounds like a lot when you only have 40, but like I said, that the investment into those animals was very minimal compared to some of my other projects. Now,
you already faced in your mind, from the way you're describing it, you'd already faced the worst. So that wasn't as bad of news.
Right. And so one of the snakes happened to be my very favorite snake, my best buddy, like the snake that, like the ambassador snake of my collection. And so he was breeding. So we had thought he was female. So he had been in the same breed group as that female that had died. But then I had found out, because it was my first season. So, so then they'd like beat each other up. So obviously, like, saliva had been passed. And then we found out he was male. And
they were having spit fights. Yeah.
Correct.
I'm sorry to joke. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm fine now. Okay. So he had a single female that he was breeding to because he was my favorite. And so, of course, he had infected that female. And then the male, and that's 2, and then his 3 females all had it. And so that group of 6. But the female that my favorite boy was breeding to was already at like 22. She was far enough along in the breeding process, and they had no symptoms, that I actually ended up keeping them in their own quarantine. They had their own rack. They were in a different part of the house because I really wanted one of his babies. And so, and I also kind of wanted to see, because they can be asymptomatic, and long-term, like it's not good to keep them long-term, but there is someone who has a long-term Nido positive colony who is studying it. She's a doctor.
Interesting.
And so anyway, I had kept them until they laid, but none of the babies hatched. They all died of incubation. So anyway, at that point, when you first experience Nido, you get very passionate about it,
right?
When it's your favorite snake.
Well, that's what I wanted to get to the core of, was because we're all creatures of our own experiences and our own life, and sometimes it takes that experience to learn and not have to go through it yourself.
Exactly, is what you want to prevent from other people, which is why we wanted to do a podcast where we normalize it in normal everyday conversation. And so I was very hardcore when we first started, and I've kind of settled into a place that I'm comfortable. So, Jessica's, I feel like she's out here and there's nothing wrong with where she's at. And she's very like, everyone has to test, everyone has to get on board. And I love her and I support her. And I think that she needs to continue to have that passion and put that into the industry. I love biosecurity. I think people should test. But I've kind of settled into where I settle with most things, where I'm like, I'm going to tell you about it, and you take what's valuable to you and you decide for yourself. Like, it's not my job to tell you what you have to do. It's just my job to provide a story and to encourage you to not experience what I've experienced in a way that feels like the best fit for you, because it's not going to look the same for everybody. Like, there was an interview that someone did recently, and the person was talking the whole time about biosecurity and about how strict his biosecurity methods are. And he has a big factory, and like, they changed their gloves, every level of their rack. And like, they just had all these awesome things and all these buzzwords that we like to hear on our podcast about biosecurity. But when you ask him about testing, he's like, testing's stupid.
Yeah.
But for me, I want to hear that someone's doing the biosecurity more than I want to hear that they're testing. But for Jessica, and I shouldn't speak for her. Sorry, Jessica, you can yell at me later. For her, she wants both. And that's fine. Like I said, like,
I think it takes both personalities. There's got to be, like, I have this, and I won't say where because I don't want to turn this into politics. I have a buddy that he and I see the world through a very similar lens. We agree. We're preaching to each other's choir. But let me tell you, that guy is going to go get in your face and say, you need to believe this, or I'm going to go, I believe this, and I got to go live my life the best way that I can.
And that's absolutely where we should be. That's how I feel about everything. Like, I have very passionate beliefs for myself, but my passion is not your responsibility.
That's true. That's true. And like, hopefully we're all doing good, but let's get specific. So, because I have a couple specific questions as well. And then Kent in the audience brought up a question earlier. So your background is medical, which is far more important than my background of food. However,
hey, there's different lessons to be learned.
Well, we both are in the only professions that are allowed to give people something to put into their bodies. And when I tell that to my teams, I don't care if it's day one and they've never been to culinary school, or if they're a chef that's been at it 20 years, if there's something that shouldn't go in somebody's body, it's in the trash. And honestly, if they produce it twice, they're probably out the door. You can't mess around with that stuff. So one question that comes to mind for me is, or in food and beverage anyhow, and in the food safety world, it's about mitigating things, because every person's body reacts different to things. So you might react differently to shrimp than I do, and might react differently to somebody who goes into anaphylactic shock.
Correct.
I'm guessing every living species has that sort of spectrum of reactions to things, or a higher level of natural immunity. We saw some people never get COVID. We see people like me have vaccines, boosters, and I still get it. So I'm guessing what I'm saying is that I feel like there's got to be there's ways to mitigate it, and I think there's ways to perfect it. But to truly perfect it, you have to live in a bubble. So my question is, and we can circle back to any other topic in there too. How does the world of vending? So you're out of your bubble, you're way out of that bubble, you're interacting greatly with. You don't know if this 4-year-old was just bit by the last banana that she picked up,
or that they were holding a snake that has crypto, or any number of other things. Yes.
Right.
So this is, like I said, like where Jessica and I sometimes don't see eye to eye, because.
So how do you live in the world of, and maybe does Jessica vend as well or not?
She does, but she is meticulous about, like, she has very stringent procedures that, in order for her to feel comfortable vending, she has to follow all these protocols.
Gotcha. Okay, so talk to me about, and like you say, let's be fair to Jessica, let's not put words in her mouth.
Sorry, Jessica. I always try to talk for her, but
for yourself, what just like quick fire, can people hold your snakes, and if they do, so how does that work?
Fire, I prophylactically treat for mites before I go to a show. Every snake, as I'm boxing them up to go to a show, gets treated for mites.
And what do you use for that?
Frontline, but it's going out. It's gone. So we are in the middle. Mostly Jessica and I are looking at. She's gonna get the information and she's gonna give it to me, and I'm gonna do like a trial of a new product. We talked about it in our last episode about the carrier agent for diluting down Frontline. And anyway, so we'll be talking on that more on our show. Okay. But so irrespective of that, as I treat everything, because
so you're treating for mites.
I'm treating for mites.
Okay.
Beforehand, everything goes with me down to the show. I have a specific snake that I call my show snake. It's a cinnamon male named Teddy Bear. It's my 4-year-old snake. But about half the time, he goes and stays with a good friend of mine who I vend with that makes earrings. So this is the snake.
I was going to ask about
go ahead. The tribute, yeah. And he has his own enclosure at my house that's not in my racking system. He has his own enclosure at my friend's house. She does not breed snakes, and so he is not with my collection.
So he's in personal quarantine.
He's basically always in his quarantine. Yes.
Yeah.
And so he's like the typhoid Mary sacrifice snake. So to be, anyway, so he's the one that I mostly let children hold. He's very calm. He doesn't get stressed out at shows. He's never struck. He's just a very mellow, sweet, personable snake. and he has sold me a lot of snakes.
Cool.
So
right.
A lot of people who are really heavy into biosecurity do not let people hold, or if they let people hold, they must wear gloves.
Yeah.
So I do not do that. I make them sanitize before and after, which sanitizer does not kill crypto, just FYI. But in order for me to be myself, and in order for me to go to the show and be genuine to who I am and to what I represent in the world of reptiles, I have to let kids touch snakes, because that's where my passion starts from. And that's what gives me energy to continue to be a breeder. And so, I really wrestled with this because, like I said, Jessica's very black and white, and she's like, you got to have them put gloves on. And it's like, I had already been to a bunch of shows and I had already been doing it differently before I learned about biosecurity. And so for me, I'm like, I can't go to the show and be this totally different way. Like, that's not why I'm at the shows. And so I do have the sacrifice snake, and he's an amazing snake. And, also being on the outside of your booth and letting kids interact and make that, initial contact in their brain of a positive experience with a reptile. You're also communicating with parents, and you're educating about reptiles. You're handing out business cards. You're opening the door in a really positive way. And for me, that's why I'm at the shows. I'm also at the shows to sell the snakes that I have that are, under 500, but I'm really there to get a reptile into somebody's hands in a positive way. For maybe the first time, or someone who's afraid. Like, I get so many people that come to my booth. They're like, I'm afraid. I've never held a snake. And I pull out, and his name's Teddy Bear. Like, how can you not want to hold him? And he really is just the sweetest thing. And so, I've helped so many people like take that first step to not be afraid anymore. Yeah. And so for me, like, I'm so passionate about that. And that's what gives me the energy to be there and to sell all those snakes. Is those moments. And so I couldn't be the kind of person where I'm like, you have to have gloves on, nobody's touching unless they're buying, and then I'll have one or two like not expensive babies. If someone is like, looks more like they're going to actually buy, I have a few that I'll take out and let them hold until they've decided which one they want. And then your protocol when you come back is, you need to have basically like a quarantine. So I have out in my new snake shack, I have a baby rack, and in my house, I have a baby rack. They're identical. And so when we come back from a show, like, I have my holdbacks and stuff, and they're out in my shop. But when I come back from a show, those babies go. And so basically, because it was show season, my ones that go to travel to the shows have been inside, and my holdbacks and the rest of my collection are out in so they're like not even in the same building.
Right. Let me ask you, and thank you for going through that. Like that's clarifying to me. How many or what level of concern, or however you want to quantify it, we talked about is it mostly spread with contact, or is it going to be spread with air is really what I'm asking.
It depends on which disease you're talking about. So
sure. And so talk us through some of those challenges or the variations.
I'm not the world's smartest on diseases. So the reason that if you want to be safe at a show and free from any diseases coming home, 100% safe and 100% assured in what you're doing, then that's why you would want to only let people touch or hold that are going to buy, having gloves on, because crypto can be on the table that you set up on your display on. If somebody sets down their phone on someone's table that has had an animal out that has crypto, that crypto is on that surface and it will transfer to another surface. And when you put on hand sanitizer, that does not kill crypto. So it is still transferable through multiple touching contacts to your animals.
So as I see, here's what I'm wrestling with personally as I prepare. I think I have not vended shows before. So my bubble I talked about, boom, things come in, they get quarantined, but then nothing, the way that light's emanating from back there, nothing goes in there unless it's been quarantined and I'm keeping it.
Right.
I got a hatchling rack out here, and then this grow out sort of stock rack of what I'll sell or might make it to hold back.
Right.
Like they got a chance, but you could get them from me for the right price, kind of thing.
Right. So I have that too. And all the stuff that's out of my shed is like the stuff that's where your light is coming from. And then the majority of my babies that might eventually trickle over to the shed is in my house.
So to me, I know it's not perfect. I do the medical hands in, hands out. If I go in that room, my hands have been washed. If I come out of that room, my hands are getting washed again.
So your own collection is a whole different animal than a show.
But that'll be show stock. And where I have an opportunity to keep show stock, like that's where that light's coming from is fully enclosed. And my garage loops around that way. So like, do I need but the problem is everything's going to be in this garage is the reality of it. So does separating it farther apart help?
So
or
if
am I
things that are on different walls, those are far enough apart. It depends on your biosecurity. So when we say biosecurity, we mean what are you doing between each animal? So if you say you're feeding frozen thought and you take your tongs and you offer a rodent to a snake and they don't take it, do you immediately open up the next one and do you feed it to the next one, which is what most people do, right?
Right.
And so if you have bio zones, security zones,
right.
So hatchlings have a very low risk of having diseases because they haven't been exposed.
They haven't exposed to the world. Yeah.
They're not exposed to the world. Nido does not transfer to the eggs. And so they have very little experience. They've never been bred. There's very little chance for them to have encountered someone who is infected water. So if your babies have Nido, then your biosecurity is a mess and you've got a whole other problems on your hands is what I'm trying to say. So they are the lowest risk category. So if say you have a set of tongs for your babies and you feed your babies in one go, that is a biosecurity bubble, like a biosecurity zone.
Right. So, and I consider that for my room back there. So
your adults are a biosecurity zone. Yeah. So like I feed my adults on a different night than I feed my babies because then I'm not worrying about saliva being on my clothes. I'm not worrying about touching an adult and then coming and touching a baby. So you would never interact with your adults and then interact with your babies. You should always interact with your babies and then your adults if you have to do it on the same day. So you go from the lowest risk category to the highest. You never go from the highest to the lowest. And that's what we mean when we say biosecurity. So do you have to go to the level that every animal has their own tongs? I don't think so. Right. I like to do bubbles. I like to break my things up on days. So like I'll clean my babies on a different day than I clean my adults. I'll feed my babies on different days than I feed my adults. And so you're just not, like I said, you don't want to interact with the highest risk group and then move to your lowest because then you're introducing risk factors to someone who shouldn't have risk factors.
I see. That's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that before. The contact, the order of contact, I would even say I'm skeptical of gloves from a food service standpoint. Because if you got a glove on and you contaminate it, it doesn't matter how good that glove is, it's contaminated. It's just as contaminated as your hand is going to be, So
the reason that most people who are in the biosecurity habits use gloves is because they can be removed and you can remove those germs with them and throw them away. So like if you have crypto out there in your land of existence within your colony and you sanitize between every snake, you're not killing that crypto. So, but if you have a glove on and you're switching your gloves, like within your groupings. So most people go a further step. So they take their adults and they break them down.
Let me interrupt one thing. I got to push back on one from a food safety standpoint. If a health inspector sees me change a glove without washing my hand, I get knocked.
So you do want to wash your hands. So
in between.
Let me break it down for you.
There we go.
Once you take your gloves off, you absolutely want to wash.
That's the key point. Yeah.
And then you want to put on new gloves.
That's right. Okay.
You don't want to use sanitizer because that's not going to be enough with the diseases.
Right. You want a full wash.
It will be fine for Nido. Just a sanitizer, but it doesn't kill other things. So anyway, So if you have biosecurity bubbles, so people who are dealing with their adults, some people treat it like every man's an island, and some people do it like by breed groups. So say you have a male and he's going to 6 females. If one of those females doesn't take that rodent, you can offer it to anybody else in her breeding group.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're all being exposed to the same male.
Right.
And so that would be an acceptable level of risk because they're also going to be in a tub with that male. So people break it down by breed groups. And so you'll have like smaller chunks. And so like if you're cleaning, you'll clean that breed group. And if you want to keep that breed group as its own little unit, that's when you would change your gloves. That's when you take your gloves off, wash your hands, and put on a fresh pair.
There you go.
But like there's like that other level where everybody's an island. It just depends on the level that you need to take it to feel safe, to feel secure, because
those are those levels of mitigation. Yeah.
I can't live like that. So I do have breed groups. I'm not going to change between every single snake. I'm not going to have a pair of tongs for every single snake. I just can't function at that level. Like that's too high of a stress for me. So like I do the best I can. I have, like I said, I have different feed days. I have different clumps. So I do mine by breeding groups each year. I do mine by like the adults. The males are the highest risk for Nido because they're interacting with the most other snakes or older females. And so you just have to be aware on how you're handling and making sure you are sanitizing between each snake. I mean, you just have to, like, there's so many layers that you can peel back and you have to find where you're comfortable.
Right.
But I do test every snake on intake. They do sit in quarantine for at least 3 months and they are tested a second time. But the reason why a lot of people advocate against testing is because a snake can have Nido, but not have a high enough level of the infection to trip the test. So like we like to test after like high stress events, so shipping. So if they had it but it wasn't high enough to read, so say somebody tested it before they shipped it out, it could test negative, but then I could get that snake 24 hours later and it's had this high stress event, and its immune system is depressed, and then you test again and it could test positive. Or after a female lays their eggs, that's a great time to test, because prophylactic testing within your colony, if you are a tester, is a good idea. So like if there was ever a female that just kind of seemed off, you just get to like, especially if you experienced it, like I've actually experienced it. So I can sometimes just look at a female and be like, I'm going to test her just because she just kind of seems off. And it might just be that she's off, but like I have seen a female die from Nido. So I kind of know what I'm looking for. Just like if you've seen somebody with a snake with a respiratory infection, you kind of know what it looks like even at the very beginning, or they start acting in an odd way and you're like, I think that snake's going to get sick. You know what I mean? Like you just learn your animals and you learn how to tell these things. And so I do test on intake. I do test after 90 days. And then I test when I feel like it's pertinent. And so I feel like for me, and then I have my biosecurity zones. And for me, that gives me a level of like, I've done my due diligence. I feel okay. I can go to sleep at night. And other people, it needs to be a lot higher than that. And then there are other people who don't feel like they need to test at all, but they have this very stringent biosecurity habits. So they feel like they have all these little micro zones of safety. And so for me, it's like, what do you need? It's real. It happened.
It's real. It is that. Yeah.
It's not a boogeyman story. It's a real thing in our industry. If you look at other animal husbandry industries, they have very stringent viral practices. There was a video that we had shared in one of our episodes a while back where they like step in sanitizer before they enter a room.
Yeah.
And that's in other animal husbandries, like it's just a no-brainer. Everybody does it. In our industry, it's not a no-brainer for some reason, but it is very normal for animal industries to have diseases. How we act and treat those diseases defines our industry. And
it'll define the future of our industry. Yes.
And the future of our industry. And right now, especially with US ARC and all the laws that are trying to be passed, I mean, you're in Florida, right? Like
it's the Wild West. Like
Wild West. It's like, if we can't do this, if we can't regulate ourselves, then they're going to regulate us. And so if they decide to go after, the diseases that are in our communities and we haven't regulated ourselves, like that's a point of attack that they could come in and be like, you guys aren't educating yourself. All the other industries are regulating themselves. You know what I mean? And so there are levels, and you have to decide where you are in the level. I want people to know that, like, it is real. I'm not a Karen. I've never been a Karen. That is not my personality. But it is real, and you need to protect yourself. And so, like, I can't tell people every person needs to test, or like, there was this big blow up with Billy up in Mutation Creation. He's got thousands of snakes. It does not make any sense for him to test thousands of snakes. Should he have biosecurity bubbles in place? Absolutely, he should.
Right.
Should he have his babies who are zero risk in the same room as his breeder females or breeder males? No, and he does it.
Yeah.
And so it's like there are levels based on your own collection, based on how many different species you have, based on, where you're buying from. Or if you're bringing in, 50 snakes a day from Craigslist, you're high risk,
Right.
But there's so many levels, and it's such an intricate thing that you have to do your research. You have to decide what you're comfortable with, because it is a business. There is money behind it.
I think just thinking about it and coming up with you can't just arbitrarily come up with your own definitions, but to a person. So for myself, for example, I'll talk about Tito. When he's out of town, I take care of his ASFs and his snakes. But by going to his facility, I was able to gain confidence in how he handles what he does, and me take in animals from him. I buy from a breeder. He's the only breeder I bought from for a long time now, but I've gone to his facility. Oh, he's got separate colonies and separate buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I like this. We're thinking about it. Are we going to be perfect? Probably not, but we're thinking about it, And so I think anything that we track and focus on is going to get better. Let me ask you. Yeah, come say hi.
Just a second. We're just gonna get trampled for just a second, and then
There we go.
This is Serafina.
Serafina, how are you?
How old you are?
I'm 6.
You're 6.
You're
Okay,
6.
go play. You want to say hi? This is the A in ASM.
Hello.
You want to say your name?
Ariana.
Okay.
Hi, Ariana.
Okay, go find something quiet to do.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Joshua. See, I told you, a herd of elephants.
How's the echo now, guys? I think what's happening is my mic is over here, and it's one of those sensitive new ones, and I think I was leaning, like I was getting more. Like,
You're getting like right next to it.
Yeah, right next to it. Let's try that, guys. How about that? So, all right, let me ask you this question before we kind of guys in the chat, if there's anything specific you want to bring up to Jana on anything we've talked about or not talked about, let me know. I gotta say hey to Dale. I'll see you this weekend, brother. I'll give you a call Thursday or Friday, and I hope all goes well.
No, but you can go play on your tablet really quick, okay? Will you take them back to their room, and will you guys get on your tablets? Okay, I'm probably going to be doing this another 30 minutes. I'm so sorry, Adam. I just kind of like push them. My ex took them for me, which was awesome. But I told him 6:30, and I think we still have a lot of talking to do.
Yeah, well, we got some, and you know what? If we leave some for the next time, that's okay. We'll make another date. So, what's your advice on cleaning? So, biosecurity talks a lot about viruses. Viruses are different than bacteria. We could talk for hours on this. Yeah. I've always struggled, and I'll just come out, so I'm not like I'm not setting anybody up for like here's what I think. I've always struggled with the idea that, and this is unpopular. I know it's unpopular. We're about to bring the chat back into things. I've always struggled with the idea that a spot clean is cleaning. I don't think it is. I can't get past the idea of, and again, it's from my life in the kitchen. It's from my life of, I spend as much time scrubbing floors as I do cooking amazing food. I scrub floors more than I cook amazing food. I wash dishes more than we cook amazing food. I can't, and I never have. It's why I have that industrial. That is a restaurant commercial.
I know. I've seen it. I'm so jealous.
If a snake pees, yeah.
Serafina, Ariana has your tablet in your room.
Maggie's tablet. It's still in the bag.
Your sister has the bag in your room. Thank you, sweetheart. Sorry, there was like she was having a meltdown. Okay.
The tablet struggle is real. So
real.
And again, I know people think I'm nuts. It helps me sleep at night, and I've worked it into my routine, so it's fine. But if a snake pees in their tub, the tub's out, a new tub is ready. I have about 10 extra of every kind of tub that I have. Switch, and then boom, off to the commercial sink for full scrub down, wash, rinse, sanitize. And again, you talked about earlier, we got to decide what we can live with. We got to decide what's acceptable.
Right.
From a biosecurity standpoint, I realize that there's not going to be some big bang of a disease. It's got to come in from somewhere. But is it going to fester more if it's like, I can't get past the idea of, let me just grab this clump and poof, we call it clean. It's not clean to me. I don't want a live animal in that. That's just me. I know it's not popular. I'm not judging anybody. It's just me.
For sure. So the idea behind spot cleaning, I think when we get busy or we get lazy and you just grab and go, that's not actually what people mean when they say spot cleaning. When someone cleans, they should be removing that, and they should be using some kind of cleaner and cleaning that area and then putting more clean bedding on top of it. But we all get busy and we just like, blah, like you run through and you just, yeah, you're right. So,
and sometimes sometimes the pee is white. Sometimes the poop is visible. Sometimes it's just wet.
It's not. Yeah.
And
So having a stringent, better cleaning system than other people because you come from that background, that's a positive. I don't think that's a negative. Are you asking like how I do it, or are you asking?
No. I'm asking, am I off base? Am I?
No, I mean, I feel like
do I get an extra hour a day back in my life because I don't need to do like what because it's not common. That outlook is like, I tell people that and they're like, yeah, as you scale up, you'll never do that. And I'm like, I got 100 snakes, pal. That's what I do. Now I bought, and I spent $2,000 on a sink to do it, but that's what I do.
I think if you can exist at that level, the more power to you. That's amazing. I would love to do that every single time. Especially now that I'm full-time in school. Like I used to be pretty hardcore at that level. And now, like, it is what it is. It depends on the time that I have. And if you are cleaning at that level, that's great. The thing that I feel like for biosecurity reasons is the water dishes. You want to make sure that you're really cleaning those. And you have to think about how are you cleaning them? Really when you're cleaning a bin, if you're just using soap and water and you're not using any F10 after that, like, are you cleaning it sufficiently? Because what you could be doing by always giving a new bin, if you aren't getting it clean to a biosecurity level, you're actually exposing your snakes to each other. It's like if you're taking all your snakes out and you're putting them in the same like holding bin, or like if you have a scale and you just plop them all in there, you're having a very high concentration of risk at that point. And so if you are taking all of your bins out and you're just doing soap and water, yes, the level of care that your animals are receiving is very high, but your biosecurity you may be doing more harm than good if you're not washing it to an effective level.
Wash, rinse, and the sanitize.
Wash, rinse, and sanitize.
My water dishes actually go through my high temp dishwasher.
That's awesome.
But 2 days a week, my wife's like, dishwasher's full of cups. I'm like, I know, I'm getting them out of there. So it's getting the chemical treatment and the heat treatment, which
that's great.
Which that's the restaurant level of.
And Jessica's probably cringing because she's like an actual like master's degree like science person. This is like a lay person version, which is the best. It's the best I've got. It's my personal experience. So if you want like the real technical details, she's more your girl to talk to. But I'm trying to give it to you at the level I exist at, which is
exactly. And what I have. Again, it's the level I exist at. And I think there's a level of like, I don't think these questions and patterns exist in a vacuum. So if I'm asking if my crazy detailed cleanliness is okay, I'm using myself. So this is like a really easy tee up. Hey, Adam, this is great. but probably my level of detail on record keeping, pairing, het reliability, blah, blah, blah. Those, I like to think those things are high, but it's the same thing. If somebody irons their shirt daily and shaves daily, they probably are maintaining their station in the kitchen to that. You know what I mean? So it not always. I've seen some grand exceptions, but like I say, these things usually don't exist in a vacuum. So hey, I promised everybody we get to some questions from the audience. Benevolent Reptiles, thank you so much for the donation. That is killer. I defaulted to he. This may be a she. Benevolent Reptiles says, what's your favorite? It's a he. Okay. What's your favorite moment with reptiles? Can be what you've done or someone else. Happy feeding. There we go. Whoa. So what's your favorite moment with reptiles?
So my favorite moment with reptiles is I love going to the shows, and I love my daughter and I, we call it the spark, and it's totally dumb because I know most of the people in the industry operate under, you know, the understanding that reptiles don't feel anything and they can't love us back. But, you know, I work with children, and I'm a happy, feel good person. And I feel like they can know who you are. You can have a connection with a reptile, even if they can't love you or whatever, like there can be a connection. And so my daughter and I, we call it the spark. And so like sometimes when you're homing snakes, I don't just like, hey, this one's pretty, here you go. Like I like to explain the different personalities of the ball python. I like to talk about how, like, when you're holding your snake, that's your snake and it's your first snake, you'll know that that's the right one for you. It's not like arbitrary. Like we're breeders, and so we kind of get cold and go based on genetics,
process based. Yeah.
But with pets, it's a whole nother animal. Like there are adventurous ball pythons, there are super shy ball pythons, there are really defensive ball pythons, you know, like there are personalities, and some people like the different kinds of personalities and other people don't. And so my daughter calls it the spark. And so when I'm trying to like find the right fit for a family, and you put that little baby snake in their hands, and they're holding it, and you just see that moment where like they light up and they're interacting with the snake, and you know that there's that spark. Like that for me, like I said, it gives me that energy to keep doing what I'm doing. And so whenever I can provide that moment with a family, like I don't get that back in money, like monetary.
No,
you know, it's just but you get it back in something that's so much better. And so like, and you're also like creating a relationship with a client. And if they decide they want a second snake, you know, they're going to come back to you because you made it this experience almost.
Yeah.
And I feel like we get pretty cold in the industry, and we just, you know, snakes in, snakes out, wholesale, you know, like, and I'm a touchy feely kind of girl. And so for me, there is emotion involved in it, whether or not they have an emotion center. I do. The people I'm selling to do. And so, you know, I probably seem like a hippie person to all those other dude bros. Love you all in the Pacific Northwest at the shows, and they're just like rolling their eyes at me. But that's how I feel about it. And so when I can see that moment of somebody connecting with the animal that I love creating, you know, like that makes it all worth it. And so those are the moments that I really treasure. Thanks
for sharing that. I think that I do agree with you. And I think also one thing I've experienced is I sold, actually, it turned out to be just a remarkable snake now that I've discovered some other genes happening. But I sold a snake to a woman a year ago, and just one day she just popped up on Instagram and she's like, it's been a year. Look at this amazing baby. Look at all. And it was like a slideshow of like 20 pictures of just like utter joy. And I'm like, that's amazing. And one of the pictures was like, she debated me forever about it. She had to, and I don't even want to get into the debates. I don't really care, but she's like, I got a separate bin so I can feed it in that bin. And I'm like, gee, okay. And like, here's this like year-old, like grown snake sitting in a bin with the rat. And I'm like, okay, glad you're loving it. You figured it out. Life is working for you. Yeah. Great. It's good. But it was really joyous. And actually, I got in touch with her again about 2 weeks ago. I said, hey, can you send me some more pictures of that one? Because I got a video I got to make about this whole clutch and the genetics of it. And she was pumped about it. So it's those are the cool things that happen with it. So Well, look, guys, if you are new joining us, it's JanaKing from ASM Royal Tales out in the Pacific Northwest. She also is on the Holdback Rack podcast. She is one of the runners, people in the running for the 15 Minutes of Lame contest over at Snakes and the Fat Man with Chris Eaton. You can get links to all of Jana's links down below in the description on her link tree. It's there. It's thorough. There's all kinds of good links in there. Instagram and a brief little YouTube stint too. It looks like.
But not for me, for my daughter.
No, I know. It's great. I was going to add that to our topics, and I was like, I think we're going to be full up on things. I've got, let's see, to recap really quickly, this weekend I'll be in Tampa with Dale at Constricted Reptiles. He's always kind enough to let me hang out and pick his brain. And I don't think he would say he mentors me, but I learned so much from the guy. And plus, he's got killer animals. So we're going to go hang out with Dale in Tampa at the ReptiCon. I hope to see everybody there. Next week, I didn't even talk about who I got coming up. I got Rashad from 212 Exotics up in Atlanta next week. Following week, I got Ray from Alluring Serpents, that's a hard word, Alluring Serpents from South Florida. He'll be on the show. The 29th, another 15 Minutes of Lame. What do you call yourselves? Contestants, players?
They call us like the lamers or
the lamers. Okay.
Contestants. Right. Yeah.
So I got another lamer. I'm not saying that crap. I'm drawing the line. I'm pulling a Chris Eaton. I mean, no, I'm not in.
No.
So we got another Stephen and Courtney from Leviathan Snakes. They are fantastic.
Amazing.
They're great friends of the show. There was a time when Stephen and I were talking about starting a podcast.
You have him on a lot, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
He's insightful. He's been a great friend.
They're an amazing couple.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, insightful
really
and just cool, down to earth. They've been great to me. But they'll be on the 29th. They're going to try and ply their wares for your vote. And then the week of December 5th, I can't do the show on a Tuesday. I got a family thing. I'm working on a special guest, and I'll let you know what day it's going to be on. That show will happen that week, but I don't know what day it's going to be just yet. Depends on the guest schedule. And then the following week, Reggie himself, Reggie's Urban Jungle, will be on, and he is also flexing for votes. And I absolutely want to say thank you to Andrew at Redwood Reptiles. It was very kind of your contributions this evening. Ron, I saw you throw in some cash. Thank you very, very much, brother. I appreciate it very much. And Benevolent, help me out. Benevolent Reptiles, was it? The turtle? Yeah. Thank you very much as well. Most of all, Jana, thank you. Good luck. Good luck in your endeavor.
Vote for me. I'm going to hit it hard. I really, really want to win really bad.
You have hit it hard. I think I covered it, but I can't remember if it was pre-show or not. Thank you so much for all your promo. You didn't have to do that. It wasn't owed. It wasn't expected. Thanks for sharing me with your world that might not have known me. So I'm really grateful for that. It means a lot to me. I hope we can do this again.
Your ear off.
Oh, no, we'll do it. I could go. We've already hit 2 hours. Like I know
that went really fast.
Yeah, we gotta call it quits at some point. But I want to do it again, and I'm always a fan of leaving things still on the table so we can get back to it next time.
Yeah.
If I can ever be of help to you and Jessica, it would be a joy. I would gladly come hang out in your world. And we don't have to be PG in that place too. So,
no, you don't.
You could see Adam get real awkward and uncomfortable. So it'd be cool. We'll have a blast.
It would be pretty cool to have you on and have you do some music.
All right. I'll finish with this.
Your worlds do not collide.
No, I'm really. I mean,
maybe on the Holdback rack they do collide.
I have to have some beverages. I mean, I'm ready. I got it. You know, I mean, it's always there.
We are pro beverages.
I can't promise that. I would be rude if I promised that. So we'll see. It's funny. I'm super awkward. Like that stage is
a different hat. I completely understand.
And, anyway, we'll talk. I don't know. I can't commit to that though. I'll bring everything else, but I can't commit to that. Stick around after we sign off. Everybody in the audience, thank you all so much. It's been a killer night of chat. I met a lot of new cool people. I already saw some of you coming through on Instagram, following me. Thank you for reaching out, connecting. I love growing the community. Jana, thanks for all your efforts in doing it. It's been a
Thank
really
you so much for having me. I
fun
really
week.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Stick around for a second. Everybody, you all know I'll ramble if I don't just shut up and hit the music. So that's what we're going to do. I got to reset the music. Thank you all very much. Cheers. See you next time.
Thank you.
Yep. Jessica, I got all kinds of kitchen talk. I will hang out anytime. Good night, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.